Thank you, Nico. I think to start off, it's clear that I'm not Evie Gruijart yet, so I'll need all of your energy today to make this feel like it's a packed audience. But first of all, I want to thank the people of In4Care and Love Tomorrow, the absolute professionals that they are, to put together such a wonderful conference. But the brilliant bastards only gave me 20 minutes to speak, so I think we'll best rock and roll because I'll have a lot to tell you. First of all, I think I can imagine that most of you are wondering what is somebody who's working in an NGO focused on cancer care is going to tell me about artificial intelligence. Yeah, okay, so what I was saying is you're probably wondering what I'm going to talk about AI since I'm working in an NGO, right? But luckily I have a background in this field. I used to be the founder and CEO of an AI consulting company. And this is the kind of stuff that we did. We built predictive models that would ship a product to a warehouse closer to your home before you even decided to buy it. Simply because the phrase "buy now at your doorstep tomorrow" was such a powerful motivator for consumers. So even though it was ecologically monstrous, the ROI was great. Luckily, we did a lot of other cool things that were less evil, but you kind of get the idea. The thing that I'm trying to say is that this was really technical stuff. And you needed a select group of data engineers, data scientists, and analysts to really make this happen. And then this happened. So the real AI boom, right? So the emergence of these large language models, the GPTs, perplexities, and go on. And actually two things happened for me. And the first one is it took AI away from that select group of engineers and basically brought it to the world. Because now your nephew and your grandfather can prompt a large language model. I think more and more people now have a decent understanding of what AI is, and I think that's pretty great. But the second thing that happened is this was the first non-human entity to be able to listen, to understand, and to speak in your language, making it much more intimate as a technology, and it's opening up the door to these AI assistants and these agents. And since we're here today to talk about the future, this is where it gets you, right? So this is the movie Her. It's a film from 2013, and it's on quite literally living together with an AI. It's set in 2025, so what better time to revisit it than today? And if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry, I'm going to spoil it, but at the end of the movie, the relationship between Joaquin Phoenix and his AI becomes so symbiotic that they end up in a relationship. Now, the only thing that I think that the tech scene has forgotten about is that the subtext of this movie is that of a warning sign. It's a warning sign of the potential detrimental impact of technology on leaving us with a very superficial kind of connection with one another. I think that is closely related to what Avi was telling about is how do we maintain that personal connection? And if you allow me to lean on this a bit further, because this is how I view the world, and I'll get to the more upbeat stuff in a minute. We are now, if we look at the last 20 years, we are now spending 7 hours of screen time for every hour that we interact with another human being. And the amount of time that we as adults spend recreational time outside of our homes in the last 20 years has dropped by 30%. And for young people, it's even worse, because in the last 20 years, the amount of time that they met up with young people outside of their homes have dropped with 50%. So this is bound to have a negative impact on how we live together, right? And we see this in fundamentally social activities, such as dining. This is starting to happen in Belgium, but we see this in the United States, where over 80% of the food industry is now moving toward takeout. So we're losing the social activity of eating together, but we're doing it in the comfort of our own homes. And we've seen this trend in another industry, because a couple of decades ago, going to the theaters, going to the cinema was an inherently social activity. And we're only doing that on average 2 times a year anymore, even though we watch the equivalent of 8 movies a week at home. So I think that's what Putnam in his book Bowling Alone really beautifully illustrates, because what he does is he mapped out all the amateur bowling clubs in the States, and he says that at the moment that we introduced the television set and later on the computer and then the smartphone, the social life and the social interaction that we had completely fell away. So this is something we need to watch out for. This is what technology is doing as well. So since the release of this book, it was released approximately 20 years ago as well, we've seen in further decline of more than 30% of all social activities that we either hosted or attended as adults. So what has essentially happened is that we've established a phone-based and a home-based culture in the past 20 years. I'm quoting The Atlantic on this, and they're really big on this topic, but I've seen it happen as well in my years working in the AI company and later on now in the NGO. But there's a really powerful paradox at play here, because how is it possible that this information technology that is making the world so much smaller is at the same time pulling us apart? How is that possible? And so Dunkelman describes that there's basically three kind of groups that we interact with. You have that inner circle of your family and your friends. And yes, technology has brought us closer because we can now use WhatsApp and FaceTime and whatnot to be in contact with them 24/7. And the third group also came a lot closer. These are the complete strangers because we can now read about worldviews of anyone on Reddit, on X, on the comment on every news article. But what technology did is it killed off that inner circle, or the second circle. And these are the people you kind of know, right? So this is the neighbor a couple of houses down the street. This is the father of a child who's also in the same class as your child. This is a friend of a colleague. And through the introduction of technology, we've lost these kind of people or the interaction with these people. And Dunkelman, the researcher who wrote this, he calls them the village. And every sane society needs a village. And that's because we need a village to overcome differences. And also, I'll show it with an example, because in 2003, there was a long-term study in the US, and they asked the Democrats and Republicans to rate the other party, give them a rating from 0 to 100. 100 being feelings of respect, empathy, kind of like the guys, understand what we're doing. 0 being cold stone, hatred, I'd rather see him die. So in 2003, the amount of people that gave the other party a rating of 0 was 8%. In 2023, just 20 years later, the amount of people that gave the other party a 0 was 40%. So it quintupled. So there's something happening here, and we're losing the village, and we need those people. Because imagine that the father of the child that's in the same class as your daughter, he has wildly different views on taxing the rich or on immigration. But when you meet him at school, he drives the same car, his wife likes your wife, and his daughter happens to be into swimming as well. So all in all, he's a great guy, right? You need the village to overcome differences. And if we lack the village, we're lacking integration and we're losing the societal fabric. So, and I told you I'll get to the upbeat part. So even though this is happening, and this is very much my understanding of what technology, both as screens in general, but now AI is doing to society, yeah, I see something else happening as well, because in my job at the cancer organization, I see an extreme longing of people to belong, to be part of a solution, to be part of something bigger than themselves. I see more and more people applying to take up volunteering jobs, to sign up for our buddy programs, to take care for somebody they don't even know yet. And I see people, thousands and thousands of people, I see them moving as one, wanting to transcend themselves, overcome differences, and this is the village that we're creating. So this feeling that we have, and I think most of you probably have heard from a Kom tegen kanker event before, these are thousands and thousands of people that we put together. They overcome differences and they share a connection based on a sense of grief, of relief, of overcoming the disease, of whatever it is, but they overcome differences. So this feeling, what we are doing, I strongly believe that it can be designed. This is not happening by accident. This is something that can be designed, and I know so because we are designing it. This is what we do day in, day out, is designing our village. So it can be done. And my point is, as a former tech guy, I believe that responsible technology can be designed as well. This is not something that just happens and we need to take it. This is not Zuckerberg and Musk pushing forward a policy and we just have to take it. We can design it as well. Because if we leave it up to those guys, this is what's happening. This is an actual startup called In4Care, And what they do is they train an AI to talk like you and sound like you, just so it can call your parents when they're in their nursing home, so you don't have to anymore. So I'll just leave it at that. This is not the society we want to build. This is not what the technology came here to do. This is not the direction. At the same time, I see amazing examples of the implementation of responsible AI. This is Code Plus, and they use predictive models to see in what urban areas kids could have learning disabilities and to use gamification to get them back on track. I see the Irish government using AI to put together citizen assemblies at scale to give people of all backgrounds input on policy making. And I see amazing software companies, and this is Elderwise, for example, who use predictive models to see what kind of care tasks will be needed in the future for elder people, and to not put a robot into a room, but to give it to the village, people who want to take up volunteering tasks and be there human to human to take care of that person. So there's a recurring theme here, and it might surprise you that we as a cancer NGO have a really strong and quite sizable AI team. So it's a really high performing team, and we have it because we're a very ambitious company. We have a strong mission, and it needs a lot of work to make it happen. But at the same time, I think we have the moral obligation to be the most efficiently run company of this country. So we really double down on AI. But whenever we implement this technology, they have to follow these 3 cardinal rules. And I'll just go through them with you. First of all, the implementation of AI should be human. And human meaning that every process, or basically everything that requires empathy, should never be automated. But that doesn't mean that it cannot be assisted by AI. So I'll give you an example. On your left side, you see Dr. Cody, and this is a completely automated experience of a doctor. I call bullshit. This will never work. This is prompting a model to get back exact responses. But it'll never pick up on these small telltale signs of an eating disorder or domestic abuse. So it'll never be able to do the job as well as an actual doctor. But that doesn't mean it cannot be assisted, because I see Belgian startups like Squire taking away all the paperwork. So those can go hand in hand. And this is an example of the human application as we do it at our organization. We have this information hotline called the Kankerlijn. And around 4,000 people a year contact us with all sorts of questions related to the disease, right? And we recently hired a new colleague. She's called Carlijn. And as you can probably tell from this poorly generated image, she's not a real person. She's an AI. And what we've done is we've trained Carlijn on all the information we shared with patients in the last 31 years. And we explicitly chosen to never let her talk to patients. But she does talk to our people. So whenever we get a new question, Carlijn gives you the solution in 3 seconds. But it's up to our people to embed it into their conversation and make the final call. This is a human application. It is also freeing up time for our people to now open up to house calls and video calls and do much more that they couldn't have done before. And the second thing is not about a clicker not working, but it's about being honest. So you have a human application and an honest application. So every application that we do of AI has to be honest. And that means that whenever we implement AI and we trust it to make a decision that matters, we want it to be transparent, and we want to be left with human agency. I'll give you another example. We have this service called the Cancer Fund, and it's basically there for people who are in financial need due to having gone through a really expensive treatment. And there's a lot of paperwork that we need to see to basically be able to pay that. And again, we hired this guy. He's called Fons. Again, not a real guy. He's an AI. But he goes through the paperwork incredibly fast. Again, he's trained on the data that we have of the last 30 years, and he's doing an excellent job in making decisions. The only thing is he never makes a decision and communicates it to the patient. Same thing here. He makes a decision and he goes through how he made that decision, makes it completely insightful, and then gives it to one of our colleagues who again embeds it in a conversation. It's up to them to overrule it or to follow it. And the last one kind of speaks for itself. I think it's on inclusivity. And it means that everything that we build needs to be applicable for everyone, right? And it's really easy to get this wrong because on your left side, you see a really cool innovation that Google tried to start. And it's this kind of application that scans your skin and can see if you have early onset skin cancer and you need to see a physician, right? It's amazing as long as you're white, because it doesn't work on people with darker skin. Simply because there's not enough quality photography of early onset melanoma to train a model to really detect the disease. So it's not just not inclusive, it's basically dangerous to put this out. So this is not the way that we want to do it. And so to end off, I think this is the final example of what we're working on now. This is the inclusive implementation of AI. And this is our information hub. It has thousands and thousands of articles on the disease and everything related to cancer. And we're now using AI to translate it to the 25 most commonly spoken languages in our country to make it more accessible to people with a migration background, but also use AI to automatically change really technical information to easily understandable diagrams and pictures. And this is handy for people who have quite low health literacy. So again, making it accessible for all. So it's not about what can we do with the technology, it's really starting from these three principles. And that's the point I want to make as a former AI guy and now residing in this cancer care organization, is that we have a choice to make. And I think it's a powerful one. I think we can do much more with AI than just optimize our cost per click. I think we can leverage it in a human, in an honest and an inclusive way to rebuild the village, to leverage it for good. And basically, this is my call to you, to employers, to innovators, to policymakers, to designers. You're in control, because I'm not looking forward to another scorched earth scenario in which big tech swoops in, takes all profits, and leaves society worse for it. It just won't do. But it's up to us to start designing it in a human, in an honest, and an inclusive way. Because in terms of AI, sure, the genie is out of the bottle, but people of Love Tomorrow, we grant the wishes. Thank you.